everyone, and welcome to this year's Homeschooling Global Summit. Today, I'm excited to introduce Cameron Sorsby, the CEO of Praxis. Thank you, Cameron, for joining us today.
Thanks, Kelly. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. Let's start by talking about Praxis. Can you tell us what is Praxis and why was it all started?
Sure. So Praxis is a college alternative program that results in a full-time job at a growing business. And it's designed for driven young people who want to become self-directed and entrepreneurial professionals. We're closing in on 500 graduates since 2014. And we started Praxis because we saw more and more high-quality young people become dissatisfied with their college experience. You know, they were bored in classrooms and they weren't confident that a degree would ultimately lead to like successfully starting their professional lives. And we kind of see like they wanted more than college, and that's really what drove us to launch Praxis.
Yeah, amazing. So cool. And 500 graduates, that's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, I'm super excited. We should be closing in on that in early 2021. You know, our first class of participants back in 2014, we had 6 in February. We launched in February. We had 6 early adopters who took a chance on us, and it's been a fun ride since then.
And as far as I know, you were one of the first graduates or for the first applicants of Praxis. Can you tell us about your journey in joining Praxis?
I was, yes. So I kind of had a dual purpose for doing Praxis. I had met and interned for our founder, Isaac Morehouse, in my last year of college. And this was a year right before he started Praxis. And, I built a good relationship with him. And somewhere in the middle of my internship with him, he told me about this idea for Praxis. And it immediately resonated with me. I went through pretty traditional private public school in K through 12, went to college, and I always rebelled against schooling. I loved to learn, but I did not enjoy being in a classroom. I did not enjoy having 3 hours of homework every night. I'd rather be reading something on my own, or really I'd rather be out on the soccer field practicing, playing, etc. So when I went to college, I was expecting that to be at least a little bit different and a little bit more self-driven, and it was just more of the same. So by the time I was finishing, I was actually still looking for junior, senior year, I was considering dropping out and just going to work, finding cool job opportunities, and then I really focused on trying to get experience. So when Praxis came about, I knew I wanted to be a part of it. And one, it was really valuable for me to go through. It was like the first education experience that I had that I felt I was opting into, as opposed to something I had to do to get to, the next step in my life. And I also kind of wanted to position myself to eventually join the team. And at the time, we bootstrapped everything at the early stages. So I knew that wasn't an option at the beginning. So I really just asked my question, how can I add value to this company, to this program that I eventually want to be involved in? And I figured out hey, become one of their first customers, become one of their first paying customers. That's what they need more than anything. We need to prove the model at this stage.
Wow, what a cool journey. And now you are here shaping it for the rest to follow. That's awesome. Very cool. And how does Praxis support students from different educational backgrounds? So coming from public school, private school, or even different alternative education methods as well?
Yeah, so 75% of Praxis grads are college opt-outs. They have not graduated college. Most of those have started Praxis without any college experience. Some find us after their freshman or sophomore year, and they similar to me, they realize hey, this is just more of the same. And almost 40% of our participants are homeschooled. And so we have a nice blend of traditional participants that had a more traditional like K through 12 experience, were homeschooled, had some type of alternative. And I think what we do well is the program experience is a nice balance between being self-driven and it can be personalized for individual participants. So the boot camp is very project-based. And all of our participants, we're giving them guidance and structure. You know, it's professionally focused, more or less. But you're choosing what different types of projects you want to work on. And our coaches that work with our participants, they're really there to help connect, like, okay, what can you do over the next 3 months, over the next 6 months that most connects with your goals at this point. And so that looks a little bit different for everybody. And also everybody learns a little bit different, as you know. And so our coaches are really there to help you figure out what is going to be kind of the best structure for you. Some of our participants, they, you know, we call it a deschooling period early in the program, where they have a lot of those habits and mindsets from a traditional classroom. And the biggest thing we can do is like help them break those habits. And that could be like, okay, like don't follow our curriculum to a T, use it as a guide to do what you want to do. And, you know, some people are, you know, they struggle with like time management. We'll help you with that. Others want to be more left alone and just want, you know, more support at specific times, and we can connect them with different people on our team, other experienced professionals to work with that. So I think that's one of our biggest goals, is to make sure, you know, as the program grows, to always kind of keep that balance between like, hey, you need to become more and more self-driven as you go through this program, but also we want to make sure that the program experience is customized for you personally.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you said having professionals from the real world to tap into and to give these resources or to give these experiences to students. So for Praxis, and I guess for all young adults, you and me too, why is it important for everyone to have this real world experience before they're immersed in it and signing up for it?
Yeah, so I think gaining real world experience as soon as you can, the importance of that goes far beyond just like the security and stability element of becoming employable. And like, I need to make sure that I can get hired and have a job and, you know, live on my own. That's part of it. You know, everybody obviously wants that. But experience, to me, it's a primary engine for the career discovery process. And this is a big difference between, you know, what we notice with participants that are kind of coming from a more school background. They're in that like major mindset, like, hey, when you go to college, you're going to pick a major, and then of course that's going to relate to what you end up doing professionally. And if you talk to any college graduate, like 9 times out of 10, what they're doing now has nothing to do with their major. And that's because you can't like plan the next 30 years of your life. It's an ongoing discovery process. So what we do is like get that process started. And experience, I think that's the biggest thing. It's very hard to discover like what you do like to do, what you don't like to do, without actually trying different things out. And you know, the way we talk about the program is, hey, treat this as a 1-year experiment and get the most out of it. And then see where you are after that, and then reassess. I think early on, if you can do smaller series of experiments, maybe it's, you know, a week-long project or a 3-month, you know, work experience, gradually over, you know, the first 5 to 10 years of your career, you're going to gain focus. And now you're probably going to be thinking in like time windows of 5 years or 10 years, maybe even. That can be intimidating sometimes, but I think experience just has to be the primary vehicle to learn and discover what you're interested in.
Yeah, totally. I was definitely one of those 9 out of 10. You can add me to the statistic there for sure.
Yep.
And I was just telling the story to a group of our teenagers today too, how I was undecided in university for the first 2 years. Like, I don't even
Yeah,
think that that's possible until the night before my advisory meeting, and I had to choose something. So had Praxis been there, that would have been a great foot in the door, I think.
for sure.
Yeah. So let's talk about helping them find or discover what they are passionate about. So how do they choose this path, and how do you help them be motivated to have this discovery process to reach their potential?
Yeah. So first of all, I think it has to start with the individual. It has to come from within. You know, you have to be self-motivated to a certain extent. But I think our role in that process of like, okay, you're on this like discovery process, you're on this journey to realize your own potential and to discover like what you're passionate about or what's meaningful to you. How do you want to set up your life? And I think we are here to facilitate that process to get started. And what I like to say is by the end of this program, you should feel confident enough and equipped to navigate your own career successfully going forward. And really, I think two big things we do are, one, we provide context on the career landscape. So like, what opportunities are actually out there? I think most young people don't get enough exposure to that. They kind of think of careers or jobs in these like big buckets of like, oh, am I interested in business? Do I want to be a lawyer? Way to look at things now. There's so many different things. I think it's easier than ever to create your career and to create opportunities for yourself. So again, we focus on kind of providing that career context, and we help the participant, you know, based on their interest, based on what they think their like long-term preferences are right now. We really dial in like, okay, in the next 12 months, what are like the best early career steps that you can take? And that looks different for some people. We make a job experience the primary outcome of the program, because again, like how valuable early career experience is to that discovery process. But it's more than that. You know, some people 2-3 years out of the program, they've started their own business. Or you know, maybe they're now working part-time and they're on the road to building more of like a freelance career that allows them to travel and have more flexibility. It looks a little bit different for everybody. But I think, you know, our role is to help them, like give them the tools and resources and those early opportunities so that they're able to, you know, discover and find their interests, their passions on their own eventually.
Yeah, definitely. So it's not always about job fulfillment, but maybe they are job creators in as well. Is that an option for Praxis students to become entrepreneurial based, or is that
Yeah,
something that they
absolutely. So and what that typically looks like is the focus is usually on like, hey, you know, 80% for 80% of participants, probably the most valuable thing you can do, like coming in, like in the placement process, is to go work at a growing, you know, small business or startup. And you're going to learn so much from that experience, again, of like what you do and don't like. And that's a really valuable way to build professional skills and to build relationships with more experienced professionals, is to go work for them and add value to them. And, you know, you're going to have the opportunities to think about like, okay, I have this experience. Now, what do I want to do? Do I want to kind of keep on this path and maybe stay with this specific company and grow with them? You know, our goal is to connect you with companies where that's going to be an option if it's going to be a good fit. Or maybe you find like, hey, I'm actually interested in this industry. now I want to like translate these skills I have into a different company. And we help you like actually build job hunting skills so that you have the confidence to do that. But again, like I said, like right now we have a participant, she's been working for a company for a year out of the program, and she's actively in the process of starting her own freelance marketing agency. And she's been connected with advisors in our networks that have set up their own consulting firms, et cetera. But I think because of the program experience and because of the type of person who does Praxis, she felt very empowered to do that. You know, like she doesn't have a sense of obligation of like, I have to stay with this company, or I have to, you know, I have to continue on a certain like specific career. I can create what I want. And we even have participants that are in the program, they opt out of that traditional placement process, and maybe they'll take a few months to, you know, work on their own business. Or, you know, what I love to see is when participants create value propositions for companies in our network for a role that didn't exist before. And so they're, even before they're like really starting their professional life, they're already thinking about, okay, what would be a valuable role on, you know, in this company that doesn't already exist. And that's just, I think it's telling that someone's able to even think at that level at that stage of their career, whereas most people just go from job to job and don't think about kind of that, you know, how can I create value and how can I create a new opportunity for myself that didn't exist before.
Right, exactly. So it's not always about, you know, necessarily finding the job and the title, but it's about finding the foundation to have the confidence to do it however you see fit best for you. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So talking about this confidence and finding this foundation, I want to go back a little bit. As a public schools educated child myself, and you too, do you think in your experience and from your students as well, do you think that the traditional education system is supportive of what students need and providing real world experiences for them to have this exposure?
Frankly, no, I don't. I think formal schooling, whether it's K through 12 or higher education, they're more disconnected from preparing young individuals for the real world, you know, more than ever. And I think the main issue is less about any specific curriculum content or like what you do, but it's more about the environment that you're in and the mindsets and the habits that it promotes. Like I said, we kind of coined this term early on in the program. Is like we realized so many of our participants that were coming into this much more self-driven, self-directed environment of the program, they needed like this deschooling period because they were so used to, you know, learning to the test or taking action just based on assignments that are given to you, and also appeasing authority figures. And we had to like break those habits, and I think it's now become kind of like integrated into the overall program structure, but we had to be very intentional about that early on, and it's still something we always focus on. I think like I said, I think traditional schooling, it promotes a permission-based mindset. You know, you're waiting for someone to either tell you what to do, or you need to, you know, get their permission to do something you want to do. And the other thing is, I think it's just limiting in how people think about opportunities. I was having a conversation on Facebook with someone that's, you know, kind of 5 to 10 years into their career, and they're telling me they still have plenty of friends their age that are going back to school because they don't know what they want to do professionally. And it's because they can't think about like, okay, how do I create opportunities for myself? What could I take action on today to make progress? And instead, like, they're just kind of trained from years and years of formal education to look at education as the solution. Like, okay, if I want to do this, then I have to go get that stamp of approval in a degree or a credential. And in today's world, you don't need a degree to be successful. In fact, I think it hurts you in many ways. You don't get started as soon as you can. And really your job to create an opportunity for yourself, whether it's, you need to prove to an employer you're worth hiring, or you need to prove to customers that they should go into a business relationship with you, is your job is to prove that you can add value to someone's life. And you don't learn that as a skill or a mindset in formal education.
Yeah, what a great answer. And I want to tap into one more thing that you said there. You said that we don't need a degree. And I recently saw that Google started hiring without degrees. That's fascinating and amazing. And even when I was in school, they kept saying, oh, they're still not preparing kids for college. And well, that was some time ago. Why haven't things changed? But the question I want to ask you is, tell me more about why we don't need a degree. I mean, we know this as working for startups or for, in an entrepreneurial mindset, but what can we tell to students who are on this path, or to parents who are also in this traditional mindset too?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the most important thing to realize for a young person that's going to be getting their professional life started soon is the dynamic between an employer and employee relationship. And it's the same between like entrepreneur, business owner, and customer. Again, you're there to add value. An employer doesn't at a foundational level care about someone's degree or credential status. They are looking for people that can help them grow their business. If historically the degree has served as a signal to employers that, okay, you're at least of a certain, level of quality, and that degree is signaling to me that you're probably worth my time reviewing your resume or interviewing, etc. Now, as over the last 40 years, as more like college has just become the default option. So everybody now has a degree. And now that signal of a degree is much weaker. And so by opting out of that process and instead focusing on, hey, can I spend 3 months, can I spend 6 months building a portfolio of projects that actually shows somebody the skills and ways that I've added value in different, businesses, et cetera. That if you show them your portfolio versus showing them a resume where it's like, I majored in marketing, I took these classes, here's my GPA, versus, hey, I pitched a small business in my local town to run their social media for 3 months. And you can point to being like, I increased their foot traffic into their business and their revenue by 5-10%. That's a much more powerful signal at this point. And not only that, like if everything was like on equal terms in the world, some people were going to college, some people were doing that, you'd be much more interested in the person with that proof of real world experience. But it's even more valuable now because there's so many people going to college that the early adopters of opting out of that traditional experience have an even bigger advantage right now. And that's what we see in the program. We work with mostly early to mid-stage startups and other growing businesses. And almost all of them, they have some type of college degree requirement or preference listed on their job posting. But when our participants send them tailored pitches and the projects they've worked on, it's like those never existed on the job posting, and they're excited to talk to them. And I hear the same thing when I'm reaching out to companies directly. Over the past 5 years, I've talked to hundreds, if not, thousands of companies. And I've had one single conversation that started off with, we don't hire anybody that doesn't have a degree. I truly, this is like a myth in the world that, companies value the degree so much. Of course, there's certain types of careers where, because of the legal element, some types of degrees are required. But if you're interested in business, if you're more entrepreneurial, you need, whether you have a degree or not, you need to take that more like project-based, action bias approach to getting started.
Yeah, I love that. So what you're telling me is the piece of paper and all the debt is a signal. Yeah, I agree. So let's go into a time machine here. If you had Praxis at 18 or 17, how do you think your journey would have been different?
It would have been nice to get that wake up call earlier than I did. So I think I did the program when I was 22, and it really, I think the biggest value for me was it triggered in me just like a value for self-direction, and like both approaching my professional life as well as my personal life, and like the things I was interested in learning and studying on my own with more intention at the end of the day. So if I did it at 18, I think in some ways it almost would have been easier because I would have had less schooled experience, and I wouldn't have had probably as strong of habits, even for someone that kind of always rebelled against the what I was supposed to be doing in school. I still had those built in me, and Praxis for me kind of again like broke a lot of those habits. So I think if I was doing it at 18, I would have built confidence to like build a professional life that I was excited about earlier on. Instead, like I spent a lot of college with anxiety and stress around like thinking about what am I going to do in the future. And it's because in college, again, like there's a disconnect between what you're focusing on in classes and how that connects to here are the actual like professional opportunities they will open up. And it should be reversed, where it's like make opportunity and experience your primary focus, and then you can learn skills, you can gain knowledge that help you pursue those.
Yeah, I like that. So it's kind of taking a whole different perspective after the deschooling happens, of course. Yeah. And we see that a lot too with a lot of our unschoolers and homeschoolers at Galileo with the deschooling process. So that brings me into my next question about the impact of COVID. So how was the impact of COVID on the Praxis community? And did you notice more interest and any maybe drop in colleges now that they're all going online as well?
Yeah, there's definitely been more interest, and I think specifically from the impact of COVID. We've had, I think, the impact that I've seen is that we've probably had a few more students that were in college, whether they're like wrapping up their freshman or sophomore year. They were already maybe skeptical or questioning if college was right for them. But there's so much social pressure around going to college, so they just kind of did it. And I think the COVID situation has allowed people like that to just more freely consider other options. So we've had more applicants, and more people reaching out from that basis. We've been working with high school programs that they're hungry for online resources. So that's been a great opportunity for us. But yeah, definitely more interest than ever. I think the people that are like determined to go to college, they're not looking at this situation and be like, oh, college is done for. I got to see what else is out there. They're going to wait it out. And it does look like a lot of campuses will be like open for in-person presence to some extent. But I think having those few months of, okay, my entire college experience has shifted to online, it's easier to be like, wait a second, what am I actually paying all of this money for if at the end of the day it's a class that leads to, a degree, a credential and stuff. So I think it's accelerated the existing trend of more and more people looking at options outside of college. So to that degree, it's kind of exciting. I think that's probably my biggest issue with how, like, from a social perspective, we view college as like, this is the default option if you want to be successful. And I don't expect college to go away anytime soon, but if we just view it as one option and there's other paths that people can pursue, then now you have a actual competitive landscape, and hopefully that will make college step up their game a little bit. But just like a smaller startup can kind of disrupt a larger corporation, they'll most likely be slow to act in that regard.
Yeah, wow, it's really interesting. And I think in some way that colleges are always going to be there, but what can't these self-directed and strong-willed people do on their own? And it's giving them maybe a little bit more freedom. They don't have to be on campus or travel to class, and they have some more opportunity to see what's out there.
Yep, yeah, definitely.
So let's talk about the future. Do you guys have anything in the works? What's in store for the future of Praxis?
Yeah, so my primary focus right now is building Praxis so that we have 1,000 participants a year going through the program, and I'm very optimistic that can happen, by 2025. Kind of more broadly speaking, when I think about like our big vision and mission, I think it's to shift the focus from higher education is the primary way people start their professional lives to a more fluid career discovery and professional development approach. And, I think from the teenage, once you're in your mid-teens and really through your 20s, as you kind of leave that like early career stage and kind of more well established in your career, your primary focus should be career discovery and professional development. How can I build skills? How can I gain knowledge? How can I discover what I'm interested in and eventually like what makes me come alive? And I think higher education as a model is completely outdated for the world we live in. The sooner you can get started, the better. And that should be an ongoing process. So I think Praxis, in addition to like running the program we're running now, there will be opportunities to expand, vertically and support like our graduates and other people like them as they continue to advance in their careers. And I'm really excited about not just Praxis, but all these other amazing companies and programs that are providing more resources to teens to help them start thinking and equipping themselves with the tools they need to like start their career. That's from my personal experience of, education did not serve that purpose for me. And I think it led to me, getting started later than I could have. And also, again, like that anxiety and stress around like, what am I going to do? Like, there's too much of a disconnect to even think about, like, imagining what I could be doing at 23, 25, et cetera, when I was, 16, 18, 20 and stuff. So that's the vision. And I'm really excited about, just in our 6 years of it, since our founding, there's more and more alternatives to college popping up now more than ever. And when we started, it was like, hey, there's like one or two sort of interesting things that are kind of related to what we're doing, at least here in the United States. And now it's like every month there's something cool and new out there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love what you said about, having something that you're passionate about. And I think if this were there, to get rid of the anxiety and to help you find what you want to do, what you're really interested in doing, it just changes your whole life, personally and professionally, like you said. So
Absolutely. Yep.
yeah, it's really
Yeah. And
powerful.
that's kind of like, that's the secret, all these things that we're talking about within the context of your professional life and professional development, they translate to living a more fulfilling life overall.
Yeah. Yeah, and I see it, really suiting for, especially for homeschoolers like we serve, and for motivated and self-directed students that are already on this path, and how it can benefit them when they kind of already know what they're doing by this stage. So
Yep.
yeah, that's really cool. So let's talk about you and your personal drive. You mentioned a little bit about your background. So beyond Praxis, what is your own personal drive? And do you have any heroes that you like to reference as well?
Yeah. So I'd really like to own a professional sports team one day. So that's my motivating factor for everything that I'm doing right now. No, I honestly, what, I think I've been inspired by people to really have a focus of, I want to help people maximize their potential and create value for them in that regard. And right now, like Praxis, I can't think of a better way to do that than through Praxis. And I'm also, as I've gotten experience through Praxis over the last 5-6 years, I'm also really excited personally. Like, I can't imagine something more fun and challenging than just like building businesses. And I think that's something that's missing from the education space. Like at Praxis, we're building a business. We're building, and in order to do that, we have to serve our customers immense value, like 10x value than what college can. And I think that's the great thing about that business mindset, is that, hey, in order for you to be successful, others have to be successful. And just the, all the nuts and bolts of running a company and stuff, it definitely pushes me to grow in different ways and stuff. And then, personal heroes, Leonard Reed is a big one. He is the founder of the Foundation for Economic Education, and that was founded in 1946. And he's probably my favorite advocate of freedom and free markets. He was a great thinker, and he was a great communicator of ideas. And I think that's something that I'm always trying to get better at. And just kind of how he approached his own life and like sharing his philosophy with other people inspires me for sure. And then beyond that, just various business people, thinkers, coaches and athletes from the sports world. They give me kind of fun tidbits to aspire to, and always keep my competitive edge sharp enough and motivating.
Yeah, that's awesome. Always about finding that balance, right?
Yep, for
Very
sure,
cool.
for sure.
Awesome. And for our parents watching, let's give them some lasting advice and tips for them, and to help them guide their teens or their young adults. And how can we ease parents and students who are viewing about the choice that they're about to make?
Yeah, I think, from my own experience, especially at that age when I was making that college decision post high school, I think the best way to support, your child in that situation is to let them drive the process, and to show them like, hey, there's not just one option that you must do. If they know, if you kind of give them the freedom and some context of like, hey, here are some different options, here's what you could do, and kind of take the pressure off to like go down one specific path, and let them go through that, let them lead that decision making process. I think giving them agency is probably the most important thing you could do at that point, for sure.
Wow, that's awesome. I couldn't agree more. And I love that you said letting them drive. all about giving them the freedom of choice. And, you know, their human brain is pretty incredible, and kids these days can do way more things than we were able to do. So
Yes. Absolutely.
yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks so much, Cameron. If you wish to learn more about Praxis, you can visit discoverpraxis.com. And thank you so much, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. I had a great time.